Hi, it's Chatty Abby. I'm here today with Jeremy. We're going to be discussing Iron Man Season 1.
Iron Man Armored Adventures Season 1.
That. Yes, we've been watching it on
Disney Plus.
Disney Plus. We finished Season 1. We're working on Season 2. We're going to try to keep it to Season 1. We'll see how it goes. If you haven't seen this show, the animation is awful.
Yeah, I warned Abby before we started. I actually, the first time I watched the show, watched the first episode and said this is trash and didn't continue. But eventually, later, I gave it another chance and ended up really getting into the show despite the animation. But yeah, the animation can be very off-putting.
They don't do teeth and mouths right, or hair, or skin. I was telling Jeremy, I was like, they just don't do white people right at all. Their skin looks like translucent. Especially Justin Hammer.
Yeah.
Oh, when they try to do blonde hair, it's the absolute worst. The black people look the best. Like Rhodey's mom, out of everybody, has got the best animation. Like she's actually like a good-looking person in the show. Everybody else looks terrible. They do animate the armor well though.
Yeah.
So when he's in his suit.
Yeah, the action scenes are actually great. So the show, the reason why the show looks so bad is because it's 3D animated, and that does not do well for a lot of things, but the one thing it does really well is the action. The armor is great, the fights are great, all of the action is really good.
Yeah. So like the different villains and their suits look great. The computer programs look great, that kind of stuff. It's just the actual human faces that look terrible. Another thing that drives me nuts about the animation is anytime they show Tony inside his suit. It's like he's in a green bubble, and he'll even be like, "Oh, my heart, that hurts," with his human hand when his hand is inside a robot arm. So in Iron Man, when they show Tony inside the face mask, it looks like you're looking at his face inside the mask. I'm not super great with art, so I'm not sure how they do that, but I know it's possible because I've seen it. When you look at Tony, it looks like he's in a bubble like this big. The armor is on his face, but when you look, it makes me mad every time. Every time they show somebody inside a suit. Except when they're in like the really, really big suits where there is space inside there. Those ones look right. But every time they show somebody in like the close armor inside the suit, it makes me really mad. And I'm like, they did it wrong. They did it wrong again. Anyway, just in general on how it looks. The voice actors are okay. I wouldn't say I'm like in love with any particular one. I don't absolutely hate any particular one. I think Pepper is cute sounding, and then she's just a little bit shrill, a little bit annoying. But I mean,
what are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? So many voiced female characters are like that. We're just kind of like, oh. But anyway.
So, what did you like about Season 1?
I really liked Ghost. I thought Ghost was super cool.
Why do you like Ghost?
Okay. So he's like chasing around Tony and he's gonna kill Tony. So Whitney, knowing that Ghost is gonna try to kill him, is trying to save his life as
Madam Mask.
And that's all really cool too. I like her as Madam Mask. I thought that was awesome. And she's like, "I'm trying to save you," and they're like, "Stop pretending to be me and you're getting me in trouble," and all of that. And then she's like, "I'm trying to save you. Nobody else can see him, but I'm gonna, I can see him." And then they get there, and then she uses her daddy's money because they're like, "Well, how much did we, we'll pay you more to not kill me." Okay. And then he just takes their money and leaves. I thought that was really cool. And it's like somebody who's like super cool with powers who uses them for money. So the motivation's real simple. So he's a gun for hire and invincible, and yeah. I don't know.
You said you also really liked the way that they did his voice.
Oh, I think I liked just how. Okay, so the thing that annoys me about Iron Man is that Tony, the voice actor who plays Tony, yells all of his lines. My dad died and I have to protect his legacy! And then the next scene, oh, that was stupid. I have to do this because... And it's just like, there's no building, there's no down, there's no sad, there's only arrogance and yelling all the time.
Mm.
And then Pepper's always like, oh no, oh no, and then Rhodey's always kind of like, that's a bad idea, you shouldn't do that, and then nobody listens to him. And then you had Ghost come in, and he was just chill.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a really nice break in the, he's just like, yeah, you can't kill me. Yeah, they paid me to kill you, so, oh, you'll pay me more, okay. All right, bye. Sure. You know, and it was just like approaching it super chill was really cool. Mm-hmm. I like that about him. Because it's like you had the Freezy guy, the Blizzard. It reminds me of like a Dairy Queen frosted. Blizzard, and he yells everything.
Yeah. And
then you have when Hammer gets introduced, he yells every line. And Stain yells every line, and Iron Man yells every line, and it's just, it's nice to have somebody who's just like, I'm above all that. Mm. This is nothing to me, whatever.
Are there any other villains that you remember from season 1?
So you have the Mandarin.
Yep. What'd you think about him?
Oh, he yelled all the time, too. And then his father's or his stepfather's always like, you're useless. And then he's like, it's my birthright.
It's kind of like a discount Zuko.
I
must do this for the honor of my family.
For honor! I mean, Zuko yelled every line, but...
No, Zuko didn't yell every line. He yelled, but then he was sad. Then he yelled, and then he was sad.
It at least had some, you know... It's kind of like when you're playing music, you're supposed to like crescendo, and then you're supposed to come back down. And then you're supposed to, if you play every note at the same volume, just ba 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 ba, you know, it gets annoying. You're supposed to put, and you also don't want to go blah blah blah, you know, which I feel like if they do have variety in this Iron Man show, it's like and you're just like, ooh, because like 1 minute like, oh, I should have listened to you. 2 seconds later, it's for my dad, you don't understand. And then they run off and do something dumb.
Yep.
Anyway, so the Mandarin's the exact same way, and he just has the same lines over and over again, yelling about stuff. And I hated how they drew him. I thought his style was weird. I didn't get it. Because everybody wears the same clothes. They have the same look the whole time. I did think some stuff was interesting. So his stepfather uses the Mandarin abilities to run a mob.
Yep.
And then he kidnaps his stepfather, throws him in jail in like a prison in his house with like, it's an empty cell too. There's like no bathrooms or food or anything. And that just seems like a lot of work. But anyway, and then he just is kind of like terrible at running the mob aspect of the whole Mandarin thing. Mm. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I liked that dynamic where they're like, oh, we're about to go to war with this other mob because of stuff you're doing. And then he goes and asks his dad, like, how do you even run a mob? And he's like, you're useless. You'll never run a mob like I do. And then he's right. And they end up in a war. And he's like, you know what? I don't really care about any of this mob stuff. I just want all the rings and all the power. Why? Because it's my birthright. What are you going to do with that? Anything I want. What do you want to do? I don't know.
Take over the world.
My birthright. Like, yeah, like, what? Take over the world for what? Like, how and what? What? Oh, I don't know. It's my birthright. So, him following Tony around to, like, get the ring and, like, going to high school. Like, all of that kind of made sense. And I love that he was, like, mob life was kind of disintegrating as he was focusing on the ring thing. I thought that was kind of cool. Because they also discover that he's kidnapped the actual leader and they get all mad and stuff too. That was cool. That all made sense. I feel like Stain makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. He yells everything all the time too. And then his daughter Whitney, her. I mean, all of it makes sense.
Mm.
Yeah, it's just how they do the voice acting that really drives me nuts. Also, it gets to the point by near the end of season 1, I don't like Tony anymore. It's kind of a problem for me that I'm not attached to any of the characters. When I like Ghost better than any of like the main characters, where you're like, I think out of all of them I like Pepper the best. I really like Rhodey's mom. What's her name?
Roberta.
I like Roberta and I like Pepper.
Well, there's one character you're not remembering who's your favorite. Happy Hogan.
Oh, Happy. Yes, because he's at least some like change in the yelling. Because even when they go to school, all the teachers are yelling at Tony for not. Tony, pay attention. Tony, you're not doing the pop quiz. Tony. So it's just like constant yelling, and then Happy's like, and it's just like so nice that there's like a difference. I hate how he's drawn. His shirt drives me nuts. Because anyway, so not loving how he looks, but I don't like how anybody looks in the show except for Roberta. So I like Happy a lot. Love the Happy episode so much. And I think that episode also highlighted to me how much I disliked Tony. Because it's like, okay, so you have Hammer.
Yep.
And Hammer is awful. And he has that really smart lady who manages everything for him.
Yeah. And
he's just super arrogant and yells at her all the time and has impossible demands, and she rolls her eyes and like deals with him all the time. And then he like kills Mr. Fix and puts him in the computer, and he does like all these awful things and won't listen to anybody, is super arrogant. Well, then you turn around to Tony and he treats his friends the exact same way that Hammer treats his friends. It's like the difference between the villains and Tony is like not that big.
Yeah.
Because you have Rhodey, who's actually pretty grounded, sane, level, stable person. I think is a really good counterpart to Tony, because Tony's like all imaginative and this and that and forgets to sleep and eat, and he's the one that shows up and goes, we have a pop quiz today, you need to go because you have to graduate high school if you're gonna like take over your dad's company. Oh, Rhodey. And then goes to high school, and does all this, and then Pepper's motivations are really clear. She wants to be a Stark individual, Stark agent, shield agent. That's right. Pepper wants to be a shield agent. She wants to, she spies on her dad and the FBI, and so she's really into this whole life, and she brings a lot to the table too. And then Tony just has these harebrained, dumb ideas every single episode, and anytime his friends try to give him any other advice, he yells at them and says they don't understand what he's feeling, and he has to. It's always, I have to because of my dad, and my dad would want me to do this or that. And none of that makes any sense. Like, what do you mean your dad would want you to do this or that? I don't get that. Half the time he's running in, gonna get himself killed. Like, that's not what your dad would want. Right. So that doesn't make any sense. And so I just don't feel like he treats his friends very well. Like, every once in a while he'll think about it and be like, man, I really love you guys and I wouldn't make it without you. I should be nicer to you.
But then he doesn't.
Yeah. He never makes Pepper an armor, which she's been asking for.
Well, he does, like, later in season 2.
Oh.
But he takes a really long time for no reason. He
makes Rhodey one, and then half the time Rhodey will be like, okay, I'll suit up and go with you. And he'll be like, oh no, because, you're this or that. And then Rhodey has to come in and save him later because he got himself in something he couldn't fix, or I don't know. So that's one thing about Tony I don't like. Well, one, he just yells all the time and has no perspective except his own. Very, very self-centered. Very arrogant. Won't listen to anybody. Treats his friends awful all the time. And then if they call him on it, then he just makes them feel bad. My dad died. My this, my that. You shouldn't be asking more from me. So that's really annoying. Then he's a really bad judge of character. So like Rhodey and like Pepper will give him advice, and then he runs off and makes friends with a supervillain and follows their advice over his friends, and then goes, oh, sorry guys, that was a bad idea. Then he does it again and again and again. He makes best friends with the Mandarin. He makes best friends with Blizzard. He makes like all these people, and he's like, oh, your dad died too? Oh, we're best friends. Like, obviously, we're the same. Anyway.
And he attacks all the heroes.
Right, yeah. Because the Hulk shows up at one point.
Yep.
Is that season 1?
Mm-hmm.
The Hulk shows up, And then Iron Man goes and immediately starts shooting him. Why? Because I don't know.
Well, the general public sees Hulk as a villain.
Yeah.
But then he goes and attacks Black Panther too for no reason.
Yeah, he just sees him on the rooftop running along and he just starts shooting at him. And you're just like, you just shoot people if you feel... So that's really annoying about him too. So there's like so many annoying things about him. And not much redeemable qualities, in my opinion. So in the movies, Iron Man, he's arrogant, he treats his friends bad, he's, you know, all these things. Like, he doesn't treat Rhodey and Pepper very good in the movies either, as an adult. Yeah. But you like him, and you care about him, and you want him to succeed in those movies. And they didn't capture that in the cartoon for me. Because by the end, I don't care about the kid. And I'm like, yeah, your dad died, whatever. And then I feel like a bad person, that's how I feel. You know? Because it's like, you can have all these flaws and still have a likable character. Right. Like Zuko. Like, Zuko had all kinds of flaws, and you liked him, you know? The writing made you feel that way. Exactly. Oh, and then the fight scenes that are the best animated, I don't know, they bug me because I think probably because he's always going, oh, because he's getting hurt every single time, and it starts to really get to me that he's like getting so hurt all the time. I'd like it better if it wasn't so, he just fell out of the sky and crashed down and goes, oh man, I feel like all my bones got crushed, and then just stands up and keeps fighting, and I don't know. The physical drama is just but it might just be because I'm pregnant, where I just find the physical a lot.
Who knows?
I don't know. Like, when you watch Black Panther fight, I really liked those crossover episodes. I liked Black Panther. I liked Hulk a lot too, and the kid that was with Hulk. Like, all these side characters, I really liked them. They were really likable in a short amount of time for me. And they come in, you know, and if they get hurt or something, like, it doesn't affect me the same way. So that's kind of nice. Anyway. But you really like this one.
Yeah, I do.
Why?
So I really like it because of the villains that are portrayed in this cartoon. So I really like the Living Laser because, you know, he starts off becoming a villain because he's just, you know, a random mob henchman who gets his hands on one of Tony's dad's prototype technologies that's not really well tested. You get to see that S.H.I.E.L.D. still has the Living Laser in custody, and because they don't really know how the technology that created him works, they call on Tony because he's familiar with his dad's technology. And so the Living Laser actually really connects with Tony and becomes Tony's friend, and is really appreciative that Tony is the only person in his life who's ever cared about him at all.
Because he's sick.
Yeah, because he's sick.
His cells are degenerating and he's gonna cease to exist. And so Tony's trying to fix him.
Yep. MODOK reveals to the Living Laser that Iron Man and Tony are the same person. And so the Living Laser sort of re-looks at every interaction he's had with Iron Man and realizes that in every situation, even though Iron Man was being really rude to him, he was actually trying to help him and cure him from the sickness that this technology gave him. And so he actually decides to help Iron Man.
Because he kind of has to wrestle with that, because that's a shift in perception from like, Iron Man ruined my life to like, oh, Iron Man was also the only person trying to help me.
Yeah. And I really like that whole wrestle in the mind that the Living Laser has to have. That's why I like him so much. Because he's also not a very bright guy. Like, he literally has the power to be as fast as his laser and like destroy anything in his path and like teleport.
That's his big weakness, is that he was programmed for failure and he's slow.
Just really dumb.
Kind of like, you know, the Hulk. Like, the Hulk has all this power, but he's, you know,
not
slow.
Too bright. Yeah. And so the Living Laser seemingly sacrifices himself in order to stop MODOK and help Iron Man.
Yeah, but it turns out he's kind of invincible because he's light, so he can be like disintegrated, but eventually he comes back together and you see him again. And so then the next few times we see him, he keeps ending up with like different villain organizations trying to use him, and Tony helping him out.
Yeah, and
Tony is actually nice to him.
Yeah,
He's probably one of the only people in the whole show he's nice to. So you've got, what did you say her name was? Rhodey's mom?
Roberta.
So you got Roberta, who's trying to help him. You've got Rhodey. You've got Pepper. I mean, you've got Happy. You've got Whitney. You've got all these people who love and care about him and want to help him. And he's not very nice to any of them.
No, he's really rude to all of them all the time.
All the time. And sometimes I'm just like, why is everybody just like lets him get away with that? But like, he's always nice to the living laser. Mm. For some reason, that guy, he's like...
Well, I think the reason why he's nice to the living laser is because he feels like what happened to the living laser is his fault. Mm. And so he's really only concerned with people who he's personally hurt.
Like,
because of his technology, not his words.
He's so much nicer to... Yeah, he's always concerned about his technology, not his, like... Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's always so much nicer to villains than he is to actual friends.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, I just feel like he could put a little bit more effort into being, like, somewhat nice to people. Mm-hmm. But he's just so in his own world.
Yeah.
He's self-centered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you like the living laser. And I haven't seen any other representation of him.
No, I don't think I think there might be some other cartoon that I've seen the living laser in, but they don't have any character development for him at all. He just has his powers and fights Iron Man, and that's about it. Mm-hmm. This is the only source of media where I've seen any character development whatsoever for the living laser.
So is that your favorite villain from season 1?
Yeah. Living Laser is my favorite villain in the show.
Okay. Who's your second?
Ghost is my second favorite villain in the show.
Because is he even a villain? It's like everybody else is like super villains, but it's like, well, like Living Laser, I guess, wouldn't be a super villain. Because he doesn't have the presentation! He's just not smart enough to be a super villain. And then you have Ghost, and he's kind of more of a henchman, like a hired hand than anything else.
He's just the best henchman you could ever have.
Right, which it's like, then they introduce Black Widow and Hawkeye, and they're basically the same as Ghost. They're also hired hands who, you know, I'm used to them being good, but you know, like it's referred to that they have a background of just being kind of like assassins, basically.
Yeah.
So I feel like Ghost is in the same character as them.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'd count them as a villain either. But they are kind of on the... I mean, he is trying to kill Tony. So
yeah.
Guess that's bad.
Yeah.
Who's your third then? Do you like Blizzard?
Not really.
Blizzard just yells a lot and then ices things. So I don't know. Do you like the Mandarin?
I used to the first time I watched the show, but not really this time. I think the other difference is I hadn't seen Avatar when I watched the show before. So seeing the same premise done way better, I think, made me like the Mandarin a lot less.
You're talking about Zuko in Avatar, or what are you talking about?
Zuko.
Avatar? Yeah. Because, you like that whole idea of, like, the angry boy who's been raised with the idea that this is what he's supposed to be, kind of wrestle with that whole idea. Who has done it better than Avatar, though?
Right.
If you haven't seen Avatar, what are you doing with your life? Yeah, okay. So not really. The Mandarin's okay. He's an angry kid who wants to get all the power for no reason.
I really liked the Crimson Dynamo. The guy that got stranded in space and then came back and tried to...
Right, but that's not really a villain either. He's just a guy.
Yeah, but they keep using his armor.
They do. Is it the armor you like or the guy?
It's both.
Yeah.
I really like the fact that he created the Hulkbuster armor not to fight the Hulk, but to fight the Crimson Dynamo. And he actually used the Crimson Dynamo armor to create his Hulkbuster armor, which I thought was really, really cool. So, the next person who I think is one of my next favorite villains is Madame Mask, but I realized that she's also not really a villain. So, I think my favorite villain in the show is Tony Stark. He's probably the most evil person in the show that I identify with. So I think one of my favorite episodes, it was in season 1, it was called Seeing Red, where Stain actually teams up with Project Pegasus and the Crimson Dynamo armor to capture him. and then he gets mad and goes back and destroys Project Pegasus, destroys the Crimson Dynamo armor that they had, and then creates Technovore to go destroy their whole system. I love that episode so much because it shows how easily Tony could become a supervillain. And the episode kind of ends ominously with Tony saying, you know, this is great, Rhodey. I need to defeat all my enemies like this. I feel like, you know, all the other villains, I defeat them, they keep coming back, but I took down Project Pegasus for good. And Rhodey's kind of like, Tony, you're kind of scaring me.
And then Rhodey's like, Tony, I'm really worried that you're going to get close to that line. I'm not going to be able to stop you. And my first thought is, yeah, you're not going to be able to stop him. Because he never listens to you when he's fired up, and he's always fired up.
Yeah.
And so how are you ever going to stop him if he doesn't listen at all, ever? Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And the Mandarin is getting all the rings because of Tony Stark.
Yeah.
And Stain is selling all this weaponry because of Tony, half of the stuff Tony built.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, he's really his own worst enemy.
Yep. So
you like the villains.
Mm-hmm.
You like these different storylines. Was there anything else you liked about the show particularly?
I think that was the main thing I liked about it. Well, I also like the consistency of the show. So a lot of superhero shows I watch, about half the episodes aren't really that great. Whereas with this show, there's not really too many episodes that are bad. There's just not as many episodes that are great. So if you're watching it, you can just kind of like watch all of season 1 without skipping any episodes, and you'll be fine.
Don't skip the happy episode. That one's the best one.
Don't worry. Be happy.
So Happy, well, first, Tony pushes Rhodey into trying to fly his armor.
Yep.
Which he very clearly told Tony, I'm not ready for this. I can't do it. And he doesn't listen, makes him do it, and he's flying around, and he gets really scared, and he ends up just like crashing the armor, getting out of it, and like running away because he was just like, I can't do this anymore, Tony. You come pick up your armor. Mm-hmm. Happy happens to be there and see the armor crash, and he climbs into it, and he plays Iron Man for a day. And Tony's like, what are you doing? Get out of my armor. And he's like, oh, are you the computer? And they like talk to each other, and he goes, look how fun this is. And he's so much better at flying it than Rhodey is on his first try. And he's like flying around, and he stops New York from getting blown up.
Yeah.
That they were just trying to break into a bank, but of course it was going to blow up New York. Yeah, it was crazy.
Well, the reason why it was going to blow up New York is because they were set up by Mr. Fix. Because Mr. Fix sold them faulty bombs to kill them.
To kill them, but he gave them like 8 bombs, and they only needed 1, and it was going to blow up like the entire New York or the whole building or something.
Mr. Fix probably doesn't live in New York. He doesn't care.
Oh, that makes me feel less bad for Mr. Fix's fate in the future.
Yep.
Anyway, absolutely thought that one was hilarious. The other thing that really bugs me about the show, so it's like the fight scenes kind of annoy me, because then they'll show him, anyway, all the things I've already said. But then the other thing is, they'll just shoot guns all the time. Just, oh, who's that guy? Bam, bam, bam. They just start shooting at him first thing. And they're in New York. There's buildings all around. Then they grab people and throw them into buildings. There's so much property damage and pedestrians put in danger every episode of this show. I would not want to live in New York if Iron Man was there, because it would not be safe. You would just be at work one day and just end up squished. Anyway, those are my thoughts on season 1.
Those are my thoughts too.
It's all right.
No, I mean, the episodes that are good are really good. Like, Seeing Red is a really good episode. Episodes with the Living Laser are great. Episodes with Ghost are great. Yeah.
That's true. There's a lot of good to it.
Episodes with Madame Mask are great.
I really liked it, Madame Mask. Yeah. So really, really good. There's really, really bad in it. I don't know. It comes and goes. Thanks for watching. Bye.